Good morning again, everybody. My name is Paul Palan. I'm the product educator here at DMF Lighting. Today, we're going to be going over the X Series family of both downlights and cylinders, and really do sort of a deep dive into the product family, all of the pieces, and some different features and applications that it's good for. So, the X Series is really our smallest aperture family that's sort of fully featured between fixed downlights, adjustables, pinholes, wall washes, all those different sorts of applications and types of downlights that you have out there in the market. For those that follow DMF and are more familiar with us, we've more recently launched our True 1 downlight, which is really truly our smallest aperture fixture at a pure 1-inch aperture in the ceiling plane. That's available in a downlight and an adjustable and should be coming to the market and available to ship later this year. But the X Series really is our most fully featured small aperture product line. So it's a very great balance of again, having a small aperture, high performance fixture, and some really nice premium aesthetics. So we'll look at some of the additional features and options that are available for the family that help you really elevate the aesthetic of your project overall. This is one thing to just sort of point out. This fixture family is truly a 3-inch aperture fixture. So at the ceiling plane, looking at that lower inner diameter, it's a 3-inch aperture. For those that maybe have been with DMF for a little while or have specified with us before, you'll see currently right now all out of the marketing, the spec sheet and everything does list it as a 2-inch downlight. However, with the introduction of the True 1 downlight, we're going to be shifting towards really identifying our products by that lower inner diameter. So the True 1 downlight marks the beginning of that in many ways, and this is going to be an update really just in the marketing and the naming of the family to reflect that sort of commitment to calling our downlights by the actual true aperture size that they are. Again, if you've been using the X Series for a while, you'll notice there are some 2s that are utilizing the part numbers. So those part numbers aren't going to change. Existing orders, anything like that will remain as is. But you'll see that marketing language be updated pretty soon here on our website, our spec sheets, and all the collateral that goes along with the family. And then finally, we're all going to look at the sort of the housing. The fixture itself has some really pretty unique patented installation features that make the installation and the serviceability of the fixture pretty second to none when it comes to smaller aperture fixture families. Once again, also, I just want to point out that this is a Zoom webinar format. So if anybody does have any questions along the way, I do have the Q&A open. You can please feel free to drop those questions in there. I'll try to address them as I move along or towards the end of the presentation. But with that, one of the really unique features that I wanted to highlight for you all with the X Series is the optical system that we're using within the fixture. So the X Series, when we initially launched it, actually, there was an initial generation 1 version of the fixture. We moved on to a second generation about a year in that really introduced this crossbeam optic to the family. So for those that are unfamiliar, any sort of traditional lamp or LED without any optics in it, those light sources tend to emit light rays in all directions possible. It's something that's typically referred to as Lambertian distribution. Lambertian, or Lambert, was a physicist who came up with this concept or really saw it in the field. What we do in downlights and in recessed fixtures is really we want to utilize an optic to push as much light as possible out into the room. And traditional optics that have done that do that in a sort of a traditional cone shape, or in other words, like a standard V shape. So they're going to spread light out in all directions. But you can see that as soon as we try to employ something like a pinhole trim or even just in any sort of standard trim, that V shape produces a lot of excess light spill that hits the trim or gets cut off in the case of maybe something like a pinhole. So that's not very efficient and tends to be a more glary solution as well. So what we ended up doing in the second generation of the X Series is introduce a regressed crossbeam optic instead. Crossbeam optics are really unique and helpful because rather than focusing light in that V shape, they cross it over into an X shape. So that Crossing point tends to be engineered to be right at the ceiling plane where the trim of the fixture meets um, meets your installation ceiling. So that crossing light shape helps to really reduce any excess light spill on the trim. And again, when you utilize a pinhole trim, you get much more efficient light output and a greater efficacy. So when we first launched this product family, our pinhole trims were going anywhere around 50 to 60% light loss. So on a 1,000 lumen fixture, having 500 or 400 lumens coming out was not really acceptable. So moving to this crossbeam optic gets us much closer to a 20 to 30% light loss. So much better efficiency and ability to really utilize pinhole trims to get a quieter ceiling appearance and sort of a much more modern, clean aesthetic. So with that one sort of thing in mind, it's a really nice, unique feature for the X series that we're moving forward into much more, our smaller aperture product families, the true one included. We're going to take a look at the rest of the family and all the pieces that go into that. So one thing to keep in mind with that crossbeam optic, not only does it really improve our performance just within a pinhole trim or something like that, but compared to a standard optic, we are also looking at an increase in efficiency as well. So once again, if you're familiar with DMF, our M series product line, which is our 4-inch downlight family, utilizes the same LED chips and the same driver design, the same wattages. So you'll see for these two IC rated fixture families, we have matching lumen outputs from 750, 1000, 1250, and 1500 lumens. If you put those two side by side, you're going to see an increase in lumen output with our X series fixtures. So that's a really nice advantage there as well. That crossbeam optic does even more to just really give you more bang for your buck in terms of the lumen output, even though we're moving down to a smaller aperture fixture. So that's one kind of common misconception, that small aperture fixtures tend to have lower output. In this 3-inch down to 2-inch category, we tend to really be able to maintain or even improve upon performance with more advanced optical systems and just an overall smarter fixture design. So with that, I'm going to move in to talk a little bit about the housings. So we have two main sets of housings here for the X series family. We have a set of new construction housings. So there's a standard new construction and also a Chicago plenum version for those folks that need a Chicago plenum rated fixture. And then we do also have a set of remodel housings. Just a quick note, our new construction housings are going to be the IC rated housings. Those remodel housings are a non-IC solution. So I'll go over both of those. But starting with the new construction housing, we really have a couple of really great features built into this housing that make it a lot easier to install and much more sort of serviceable overall. So this guy up here, everybody can see pretty well. So this is our standard round new construction housing. I'll note the square is pretty much the same in terms of the form factor. We just have a different plate over here on the front that allows you to obviously accommodate a square trim and square aperture. So one of the first common challenges with small aperture fixtures is getting a really good, precise cutout in your ceiling. Many other types of fixtures, and I'm going to grab just one of our 4-inch housings, for example. So this is the case on our 4-inch housing, which tends to be less of a problem for larger aperture fixtures, but the installation process generally, after the housing is installed and the drywall goes up, drywallers come in with a zip router and go to the center of the fixture. They find the outside of the fixture, and then they have to jump to the outside of the can and route around the outside of that opening to allow the can to really properly sit within the opening in the drywall. So it's called something called a jump cut, which if you're doing hundreds and hundreds of fixtures in a row, as often they are, tends to be harder to reproduce and easier to accidentally slip and overcut your drywall, which can lead to a gap between the drywall and the trim of the fixture. Not a really great finished look overall. So the first thing that we did here with this fixture family is sort of change that process. Your housing goes up, the drywall goes in. All they have to do with that zip router is, and I'm going to put my little ceiling proxy in here. So imagine there's no hole in the drywall yet. They go through with their zip router and route around just the inside of that opening of the collar. And they're left with that opening in their drywall. From there, we have this precision lock collar system. So this collar is a machined piece of aluminum that is going to fit in very precisely. And then we'll find a spot here and make a somewhat funny sound, but it engages with these springs that are on the inside of the housing and screws all the way down. So you tighten that down nice and securely, and you have this very clean machined part that becomes the edge of your fixture and the edge of the ceiling there. So that makes it much easier to install, less, virtually no chance of overcutting, and a much cleaner installation overall. From there, we then have our module and trim, and so that goes into place very simply. They just align and are held into place into that collar. This fixture family, which we'll also go over, has some really beautiful micro flange trims. So part of the reason we're able to do that is because of that collar system, which makes it much easier to get a nice clean cutout. On the square version of the housing, we have pretty much the same process. Obviously, we're dealing with a square aperture here. They'll do the same cutout process, and then our square collars instead just have two screws that are going to, after we take that mud cover off, those two screws screw all the way in and hold it in place instead. So that is really the main difference for the square housing. The other key feature here is that we have these sets of screws here in the front. If you take that red screw out, these two other screws can loosen as well. This whole fixture collar can rotate a full 90 degrees. So that's going to give you the ability to really precisely align the square apertures in your ceiling, something that's really key for a nice, clean installation. So once that's done, they can, align it just as they need to, retighten those two screws, and then they have a nice, perfectly aligned installation of square downlights in their ceiling. The other big challenge with small aperture fixtures is really maintaining access to your splices. So here at DMF, again, we really employ a modular approach to everything that we do, and we build in our drivers directly onto the light engine and the module itself. So this has our LED optics and everything. A trim goes on the front of that, of course, and then this driver is housed right in the back here. So this makes it very accessible and easy to get from below the ceiling. That said, there's, with that design, we have a quick connect in here that is going to plug in from the housing. This is going to carry our line voltage and our control wires if you're doing any 0 to 10 volt dimming or dolly dimming. But then, of course, we have a junction box off to the side here. So most fixtures are going to have something of the sort. So that junction box has room for your knockouts and wiring that's going to splice into the fixture. But if you ever need to access or repair that wiring, the splices from below the ceiling, we all know that can be a huge challenge with any traditional fixture design. You're typically not able to do that unless you have access above the ceiling or you tear out the drywall in the case of a hard lid ceiling. So what we've done with this fixture family is built in this feature where you can reach in to inside the fixture. There's aside from the quick connect, this piece of aircraft cable. You can pull on that aircraft cable and this trap door will then sort of open up. These butterfly latches open up here, and then you have access to all of the splices that you've made from above the ceiling during the rough-in process. So if you have a loose wire nut or anything that needs to be sort of reattached, you can make that adjustment, tuck it back into place, and go on with your day without, fully disrupting or tearing out your ceiling. So two really key benefits of this housing that make the overall installation and serviceability, again, really sort of unparalleled, especially in this smaller aperture class of fixtures. The other two housings, again, or another set of housings that we have are going to be our remodel housings. So two pretty simple housings here. This is the round remodel collar. It's basically a collar and junction box system. So on the round and square, you have either a round or a square collar. Both of those, you simply do your cutout within the ceiling, and I'm going to reset these. So you do your cutout, that collar sets into the ceiling, and then those, in the case of the round, these three spring clips open up and securely hold that within the drywall. One thing to note, this does have a bit of a lip or a flange to it. So that's going to hold it in the bottom side of your drywall. So these are for use with flanged trims only, not our flangeless. So just keep that in mind when doing your spec and looking at a possible remodel installation. The other component to that is a junction box and a wiring cap. So this junction box here is going to have space for, your Romex or your conduit going in and out. So all your field wiring is just spliced into this junction box. The cap is going to carry that wiring over to your module, and that simply sits in the back of the module inside of there. So those two components are what make up the remodel housing. And again, for the square version, pretty much the same, just has a set of screw flags that hold it into the ceiling instead. So those are the different housing options that we do have available for the fixture family. Moving on to really the heart of the fixture itself, the light engine and the module. So our modules are going to come in two varieties. We have the XMD, which is our fixed downlight, and the XMA, which is going to be our adjustable module. So you'll notice we don't have a dedicated wall wash here. The wall wash is really just utilizing our fixed downlight with a wall wash trim. So I'll talk about that when we move to the trims. But overall, these modules have a few different sort of shared spec points. For one, they're always going to be a universal dual voltage, so 120 or 277. We have three dimming options. So that's a standard triac or ELV on 120 volt electricity or 0 to 10 volt. Both of those are going to give you 1% dimming performance. So really beautiful, smooth 100 to 1%, compatible with any major or really any dimming system out there in the market. So we do extensive dimmer testing with our own drivers to really ensure flicker-free performance and compatibility with any system that's out there. So you won't find with DMF dimming compatibility tables. We've gone through the extensive testing and research to really ensure that our drivers perform as you expect with any system that's out there. The last dimming option we do have is a Dolly 2 dimming system. So this is available for both static, warm dim, as well as our tunable white options. I should note that if you're doing tunable white with us, it is the only dimming option that you do have. We do need a digital dimming solution to give you that tunable white control. It's really the most feasible and best way to do it within particularly downlights that we've found. All of the modules in this family, again, both fixed and adjustable, have shared beam spreads that are going to range from 10 up to 50 degrees. So we have a narrow spot, flood, and wide flood. That's that 20 to 50 degree range. You'll notice we have an ultra narrow option, which is that 10 degree option. We're able to achieve this by moving to a smaller LES size on the LED chip itself. So that's a particular configuration that's paired with a 500 lumen output. So 500 lumens and the ultra narrow optic are mutually exclusive. They come together and are not available with other options, but the standard narrow spot to wide flood is available for any of our lumen outputs. We also do have a linear spread that's a 50 by 30, so that's going to give you that nice sort of oval shape for artwork or corridors, any sort of particular applications that need that linear spread rather than a standard circular cone of lights. When it comes to our CCT options, this is going to be true for all of our premier sort of product families of spec grade fixtures. We have static CCTs in the 2400, 27, 3000, 35, and 4000. Our warm dim is always going to be a 1000 lumen chip that is a 3000 to 1800. So it's a really nice, smooth warm dim that brings out, into that really warm, sort of very smooth end of the dimming curve. And then our tunable white, we have two options, a 6500 to 2700 or a 4000 to 1800. Again, those are both available in the Dolly 2 dimming format and come in either 1000 or 750 lumens for downlight or adjustable. So those are really the modules. I'm going to point out a little bit sort of in the physical part of the module itself. This is really our fixed downlight module here. When it comes to that crossbeam optic system, we have two pieces here. This lens that goes in front is purely a diffusion lens. So every optic comes with a standard diffusion lens off the bat. So that's sort of the default option. I'll go over in a couple slides some of the different options we have for other options there, but this is going to stay the same for all of the optics that you use, except for the linear spread, which has its own unique one. But that is going to go in the front, and it's going to cover the front of the fixture and give you a nice clean lens. The piece that's on the inside here is this this optic that's twist and locks inside the module itself. This is the crossbeam optic that does your beam spread control. So if you look very, very closely, there's some small inscription there that has the FL marking. So that denotes that it's a flood. And this is going to give you your beam control for all of those different optical ranges. So that crossbeam optic is going to be the same between our fixed downlights and adjustable. So that's a really nice feature there, as well as you get really the same optical performance, beam spread between all of your different options here. Moving over to our adjustable module. This is the module itself. You see it's a little bit taller. It has this tilting mechanism that allows for our 0 to 35-degree tilt. So a really nice tilt range. On the inside, you look, there's a small gray lever with some degree markings on the side. So you can push up against that lever, do your tilt adjustment, and then the module itself is going to rotate within the fixture collar so that you can precisely aim it wherever you need to. And then this adjustable module, again, is available in lumen outputs between 500 and 1000 lumens. The optics, again, are really going to be the same. We have just a slightly different attachment for our diffusion lens, which pops off the front here. But then we have that same twist and lock mechanism, the same set of optics on the inside of the module. Moving over to the last component of our fixture. So again, every DMF fixture has our housing, our module, and trim. These trims are going to finish off your fixture, give you the aesthetic look, and of course, provide some different functionalities as well, depending on the choice that you go with. There's a few different things to point out here. For one, we have our flanged and flangeless options. So I pointed out in the beginning of the presentation, we have these micro flange trims for our fixtures that really, sorry, I can grab that on my. These micro flange trims, which are really a nice 1/4-inch trim that really give it a very sort of minimal and clean aesthetic, as opposed to some of the thicker 1/2-inch flanges on a lot of downlights. And then just to note, we do have different trims for our fixed downlights versus adjustables. So our fixed downlight trims have this twist and lock mechanism that pairs with our fixed downlight module. So that's the sort of attachment means. And then the spring clips on the side here hold that within the fixture collar itself. The adjustable trims have, as you can see, these sort of two prongs on the side. So these trims are instead going to install directly into the module. So the module has a sort of an orange tab on one side, and the trim will also have an orange tab. Both of those are going to sort of line up and lock into place. So that's how our adjustable trims install. Our adjustable trims also on most designs have that sort of shovel cut opening that's really going to allow for the full tilt of the module to go all the way without cutting off the beam or having any sort of light loss in that case. Our standard finishes are going to be a black, a white, bronze, as well as a clear diffuse, which is that sort of silver metallic finish with a white flange. And then we do have a couple of different premium trim finishes available in the family as well. So these are a somewhat new addition in the last year or so. So we have 3 different color options that are a copper, graphite, and a brass. So those three unique colors really add another really nice level of fit and finish and polish to your installation. Like particularly if you have any sort of woods or wood ceilings, like the copper or the brass can really complement a lot of those more sort of rich wood tones. These trims are really nice in that they're sort of a 3-step finish process. It's called MVD, or molecular vapor deposition. So there's a matte wet paint that goes on below the trim that gives you the color. There's a metallic particle coating over that, and then a final clear coat finish that gives you that really nice sheen and sort of metallic, or really true metallic look over the overall finish of the fixture. So these three new premium trim options are available for the standard trim style, in other words, the bevel trim. And that is available in either flanged, flangeless, as well as round and square. So really nice set of options to really expand your sort of premium finish and premium aesthetics for the fixture. When it comes to different trim styles, we have our standard trims. Again, I just said standard trim is what we refer to really as our bevel cut trim. So again, both round and square. I should note, and you can see on the screen here, sort of that all of our square trims in the family have solite on the back end of the trim. So whether it's a fixed downlight or adjustable, you're going to see really the same trim style between those two different fixtures. In fact, here I have on the square side of the family a fixed downlight with that twist and lock versus our adjustable trim. So you see from below the ceiling, you really get the same exact appearance and shape because of that solite lens. So it's kind of a nice feature on the square fixtures within the family. We also have, of course, our pinhole trim. So again, I alluded to or talked about the performance that you get out of the crossbeam optic with our pinholes. So both, again, round and square. Really brings the aperture of the fixture down to about 1.5 inches. So really sort of nice petite pinholes in the ceiling, and you're really maintaining the vast majority of your light output from the fixture. We also do have a really nice hyperbolic option. So the hyperbolic is great in that it really provides a little bit more of a unique look as compared to our standard trim. And I'm just going to get one plugged in here for you all. So rather than having the sort of sharp cutoff that comes with a traditional bevel cut trim, on our hyperbolic, you have that nice sort of gradual transition from the bright to the dark ceiling because of that curved hyperbolic shape. So they give it a little bit more softness and actually really help with glare as well, and give you an overall just sort of a smoother appearance in the ceiling. And then finally, we do have our wall wash trims. So again, wall washes for us here at DMF, you're going to utilize, again, one of our fixed downlight modules and one of our wall wash trims. So these wall wash trims have an angled lens in it that are going to do that asymmetrical throw for your wall washing. You'll simply want to pair it with the widest possible beam spread that we offer. So in the case of our X series, we have the wide flood 50 degree, and that's going to give you that sort of nice asymmetric angled wall wash that's going to give you the ability to wash all of your vertical surfaces within a room. For the X series, because that wide flood optic is our widest option, it's not quite as wide as, let's say, a general ambient or like a 90-degree beam spread. We found best performance typically around 2'6" to 3 feet away from the wall, and about a 1-to-1 spacing ratio. So if you're 3 feet back, 3 foot on center spacing, and that will give you a nice even wall wash with our fixtures. Last set of trims to point out here, we do have a full set of decorative trims as well. These are pretty unique and offer a really nice sort of decorative element for your fixture below the ceiling. In the round configuration, we have, sorry. Oops. In the round configuration, we have the decorative hyperbolic, and actually both the hyperbolic and the open trim are really open to the optic of the fixture. So most of the center beam candle power that's coming out of the fixture is going to remain untouched. But you do get this really nice sort of decorative element below the ceiling that is going to give you some visual intrigue. They also do cast a fair amount of light going out because of that acrylic. So it does give you a little bit more vertical light on, surfaces like walls, or, if you have nearby casework, anything like that. So there's some nice benefits to these decorative trims as well, because they can make a space feel a little bit brighter and more open if you're getting some of that vertical light up onto the walls. We do have three other styles really. One additional one in the round, so it's the decorative open that has sort of a clear front and frosted sides. And then we do have two square options. This is the decorative open for the square, which has sort of clear frosted sides and a frosted middle, as well as the decorative float, which is one of my favorites. It has those clear acrylic sides and the fully frosted front. So these two square ones are going to be much more diffused because of that frosted opening. They're not going to let as much light out from the center of your fixture, but it does give you a really nice, unique look within the ceiling plane. Real quick, a couple of accessories. So we have mud rings for the family, which of course are going to be used for your flangeless trims. Just note that that is a separate purchase aside from your flangeless trim, you're doing flangeless millwork, you obviously won't need this. You're not doing any mudding, but any flangeless drywall will require one of these per every fixture that you order. When it comes to flangeless millwork, we actually have a dedicated wood kit. So there's a router template that's going to give you the proper cutout for the fixture itself. So that can be used on the back of the panel. And then on the back of the panel itself, we have this flangeless wood kit. So this has a collar and a mounting plate. So once you route your opening, that collar sets inside. You set it to the proper height, and then you're able to house your module directly into the panel with that. We do have some extension collars as well. They're available for the round fixtures, and they will only accommodate actually the fixed downlight, not the adjustable, so keep that in mind. We don't have them for the square version, but for the square version, you can simply use the included fixture collar or the wood kit with some longer screws, and that will accommodate those thicker ceilings as well. So those extension collars will accommodate ceilings up to 3 inches thick, as opposed to the standard 1.5 inches that you get out of our typical fixture collar. We also do have, again, a set of or some different optical accessories available as well. When it comes to the diffusion lenses, we have 2 different options aside from the standard diffusion. So we have a clear diffusion that you can see is really fully clear. So if you want less diffusion on your fixture, you want to have a little bit of a sharper image, you can go down to that clear diffusion, or on the opposite side, if you need a higher option, we have the heavy diffusion. So that's going to diffuse it even more. It's sort of equivalent to like a soft focus lens. So it's going to spread out your beam spread, give you a softer edge, and help sort of soften things even more than our widest optic option that we do have. We also have some different hex cell options, again, for downlight and adjustable. So these are going to take the place of your standard diffusion lens. They have their own diffusion lens built into the back, the hex cell louver in the front, and they just snap into the front there. So that gives you some additional glare control. Again, you compare that up with, any of our standard trims, like our hyperbolic or our standard downlight trim or adjustable trim. So you have that extra level of glare control. And all of these can be ordered as accessories after the fact. So if you get into an installation, you can, make an order for additional optics, additional diffusion lenses, hex cell louvers. All of those can be installed without any tools in the field really quickly and easily. Real quickly, I'm just going to give you a little synopsis overview of the cylinders that are going to complement the X series family. So we have 2 different cylinder extrusions available here. We have a 6.5 or a 9-inch length on those cylinders. So I have the 6.5 or the 9-inch here. And then we do have a wide variety of different sort of mounting types that are available. So pendants, surface mounts, and wall mounts. The pendants come in a rigid stem that's field cuttable, actually. So you can really adjust that in the field, even though it's a rigid stem. Or the cord mounts, which are available in custom lengths up to 10 feet. Those rigid stems we can do in custom lengths up to 8 feet, or we have some standard 2-foot or 4-foot lengths as well. All of these are going to match the modularity and utilize the same exact modules from our X series family. So they're available in that up to 1500 lumen output. If you see, we can take out the trim from one of our cylinders, and really on the inside, it's that exact same downlight module, same optics, LEDs, dimming. And the really great part here is that because we're utilizing that embedded driver technology, all of our cylinders are going to have the drivers housed directly within the cylinder extrusion. So that really simplifies our installation. Again, you're just doing a standard line voltage connection right to your cylinder. You don't have to worry about remote drivers or thicker canopies or anything like that. Makes the overall cylinder process very easy and simple, and also, again, sort of more serviceable within the field as well. All of these different mounting types have some different IP65 rated options, as well as some newer marine grade options that you'll find available, and have a variety of different trim types as well. So we have a standard trim, we have adjustable modules, as well as wall wash trims. We do have a snoot trim that's going to give you a little bit more of a shielding to that fixture, as well as some complementing decorative trims to match the different downlight options as well. Finally, for the X series cylinders, we do have some new decorative pendants with shades. So we're going to utilize that same cylinder extrusion, whether it's 6.5 or 9 inch. And then we have a narrow, medium, and wide option that give you some different profiles that you can really mix and match within your different cylinder sizes. And with that, that brings me to the end of our presentation today. I want to thank you all for joining me. If you have any questions or anything, I'll stick around for a few minutes and keep an eye on that Q&A. Otherwise, I hope to see many of you again soon. In another 2 weeks, we'll be bringing a new webinar topic to you that's all about color over angle and uniformity within the beam of downlights. So that's going to dive into some more sort of specific or technical topic-based things that should be hopefully pretty interesting. So I hope to see many of you there. Otherwise, thank you again all for joining me and hope you have a great day.